Ano ba ang meron sa Mars? Bakit nagpapadala ang mga mauunlad na bansa ng kanilang mga robotic ambassadors sa planet Mars? Kagaya ng Amerika, nagpadala po ang Amerika ng kanilang latest Mars Explorer na ang pangalan ay Perseverance. Ang China, nagpadala na rin po ng kanyang robotic ambassador sa Mars. Sumali na rin po ang United Arab Emirates na nagpadala ng kanyang robotic ambassador sa Mars. Ano ba ang meron sa Mars? So naghanda po ko ng special lecture na pinamagatang Mars Decoded dito lang po sa ating programang Space, the Final Frontier. Please like and share this video para po makarating sa mga estudyante na gustong mag-aral ng siyensya. Ngayon po, pag may mga katanungan kayo about this special lecture, please feel free to type in your questions in the comment section below. So tara na! And let us explore Mars like never before, and let us go where no man has gone before.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone.
Hello, greetings, and welcome to episode 6 of Space, the Final Frontier. I am Professor Jun Cahigal. Now, Space, the Final Frontier is a series of online lectures intended to inspire our students to love the sciences, especially in the field of astronomy, and also to help them in their online classes. Now, supposedly, episode 6 is about the history of astronomy with emphasis on the contributions of Galileo Galilei, Sir Isaac Newton, and Edmund Halley. Now, because of the recent landing of NASA's latest Mars explorer, the Perseverance rover, it is just fitting that I should prepare a lecture about Mars and this latest Mars explorer, the Perseverance rover. So we will have the history of astronomy with Galileo Galilei, Isaac Newton, and Edmund Halley in our next episode, episode 7. So I prepared a special lecture about Mars and the Perseverance rover entitled Mars Decoded. So this lecture is about the planet Mars and also the latest Mars explorer, the Perseverance rover. Now, if you have any questions or comments or reactions about this special lecture, please feel free to type in your comments or your questions in the comment section. Wag po kayong mahiya, and I would be very happy to answer all your questions or comments. So everybody sit back and relax and let us listen to this lecture entitled Mars Decoded.
We are a species of explorers, believers.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
We are willing to do the hard things to overcome the many challenges. This is what brings out the best in us.
We go for a mission to the moon.
Our path has led to success and to bitter losses.
We come together today to mourn the loss of 7 brave Americans.
Yet, even when faced with tragedy and setbacks, we persevere. We keep striving. We keep believing. From space, we see our planet as a whole. We see the challenges facing it, and we face those challenges together. We will not give up. We challenge convention. We refuse to accept the status quo. The time at hand is hard, but we will persevere. We can still draw hope from the moon and the stars, from space, from exploration. There is a new day beyond the challenges we face now.
Curiosity, insight, spirit, opportunity. If you think about it, all of these names of past Mars rovers are qualities we possess as humans.
10, 9, we have ignition sequence start.
But if rovers are to be the qualities of us as a race, we missed the most important thing.
3, 2,
Perseverance.
launch commit, liftoff. We have liftoff.
We are a species of explorers. We will meet many obstacles on our way to Mars. But as humans, will not give up. We will always persevere.
Hello, greetings, and good day. Now, Mars occupies a special place in astronomy, space exploration, and also in the minds of the public because it is the most Earth-like planet in the solar system and the place where the first detection of extraterrestrial life seems most likely to be made. Another important reason for studying Mars is to be able to compare it with the other terrestrial planets and to learn how the differences among these planets relate to differences in their formation and evolution, stemming from factors such as as distances from the Sun, their initial sizes, and their proximity to Jupiter. So for this talk, we shall study Mars and the possibility of a manned mission. Plus, we shall study the latest Mars rover Perseverance and some of its features that hopefully might provide us with the answers to our questions about the red planet. So join us as we study Mars like never before. Now, if you have any comments or questions or reactions about this lecture, please feel free to type in your comments or your questions or your reactions in the comment section or chat box. Huwag po kayong mahiya. And we will be glad to hear from you. So if you have any questions or comments or even pa shout out about this lecture, please feel free to type in your questions or comments in the chat box or comment section. So tara na and let us study Mars. So to start our talk, I would say that we must and we need to go to Mars. Now, probably you might wonder why. Sir, bakit natin kailangan pumunta sa Mars? Now, there are several reasons why we need to go to Mars. And one reason is pure curiosity. We want to learn more about the red planet. We want to add more information about this mysterious planet called Mars. So pure curiosity. Now, another reason why we need to go to Mars is that the potential for humans to provide a more in-depth observational research as compared to unmanned rovers. So, ang ibig lang sabihin nito, mas maganda po kung tayo mismo ang pumunta sa Mars at pag-aralan natin ito as compared to unmanned rovers, yung mga pinapadala natin ng mga robotic ambassadors sa Mars. So, mas maganda po kung tayo mismo ang pumunta sa Mars. So that's another reason why we need to go to the red planet. Now, another reason is the economic interest in its resources. So malay natin, baka maraming mga natural resources sa Mars na kailangan natin dito sa Earth. And number 4, another reason why we need to go to Mars is the possibility that the settlement of other planets could decrease the likelihood of human extinction. So siguro pag-aralan natin ang planet Mars para makita natin yung posibilidad of colonizing the red planet. Now, in relation to colonizing Mars, beyond Earth, Mars is one of the only places in the solar system where humans could one day live. Ngayon, bakit? Now, Mars is relatively similar to Earth in many ways. So, at this point, let us now study some facts about Mars and what makes Mars relatively similar to Earth. Now, in terms of the size of the red planet, Mars is about 1/2 of the Earth's diameter. So, yun po ang size ng Mars. Mars is only 1/2 of the Earth's diameter. And with regards to its volume, it would take more than 6 of Mars to fill the volume of the Earth. So yan po ang volume ng Mars. It would take more than 6 of Mars to fill the volume of the Earth. So that's the size and volume of Mars. Now, Mars is considered the second smallest planet in the solar system. Only Mercury is smaller. And Mars is about half the size of Earth, about 53% the size of Earth. And would you believe that Mars has the same amount of dry land as the Earth? So isn't that fascinating about the size and volume of the red planet? Now, with regards to the mass of the red planet, Mars has about 1/10 of the mass of the Earth. So, hindi masyadong massive ang Mars as compared to our planet. And because of that, it also affects its gravitational pull. In fact, if you're on Mars, you would experience only 62.5% less gravity than you're used to here on Earth. So here on Earth, if you can do jumps, on Mars, you can do kangaroo hops and you can jump higher on the red planet. So ibig sabihin yan, pwede kayong maglaro ng basketball at pwede kayong mag-dunk pag nasa Mars kayo kasi mas mataas ang talon ninyo sa Mars because of the less gravitational pull. Alright, so that's the gravity that you would experience if you're on the red planet. Now, because of the lesser gravitational pull on Mars, you would weigh less on the surface of Mars. In fact, if you weigh about 100 pounds here on Earth, on Mars, you would weigh only 38 pounds. So, isn't that fascinating that you would weigh less on the Martian surface as compared here on Earth? So, if you weigh 100 pounds on Earth, you would weigh only 38 pounds on Mars. So, kung gusto niyo magbawas ng timbang, wag na po kayong mag-exercise at pumunta na lang kayo sa Mars. Now, with regards to its revolution around the Sun, a year on Mars is almost twice as long as a year on Earth. Mars takes about 687 days to complete one revolution around the Sun as compared to our planet. Planet Earth takes about 365 days to complete one revolution around the Sun. Now, with regards to its rotation on its axis, Mars takes about 24 hours and 40 minutes to complete one rotation on its axis. So, ibig sabihin yan, one Martian day is 24 hours and 40 minutes. Sobra lang ng 40 minutes dito sa Earth. Planet Earth takes about 24 hours to complete one rotation on its axis. Now, what about the tilt of the Martian axis? Now, the Martian axis is tilted by 25 degrees, which is close to the tilt of the Earth's axis. The Earth's axis is tilted by 23.5 degrees. So the Martian axis is tilted by 25 degrees, which is similar or close to the Earth's inclination by 23.5 degrees. Now, what is the implication of this? Now, because the tilt of the Martian axis is close to the tilt of the Earth's axis, Mars manifest seasonal changes. So there are seasons on Mars which is similar to Earth, and we can observe that by the growing and the shrinking of the polar ice caps of Mars. So isn't that fascinating that Mars also manifests seasonal changes which is similar to Earth? And again, we can observe the seasonal changes on the planet Mars by the growing and the shrinking of the polar ice caps. So if the polar ice caps is extensive or medyo malaki yung polar ice caps, that means only one thing. So that is Martian winter. Now, if the polar ice caps is much smaller or maliit yung polar ice cap sa Mars, as you could see in this picture, that means only one thing. So, that is Martian summer. Now, pag in between, pag hindi masyadong malaki or hindi masyadong maliit, that is Martian spring. So, that's how we observe seasonal changes on the planet Mars. So we can observe that by the shrinking and the growing of the polar ice caps. Now here is a photograph of the polar ice caps of Mars dated October of 1996. So you will notice on October of 1996, the polar ice caps of Mars is much extensive. So medyo malaki yung polar ice caps ng Mars. So that means only one thing, and that indicates Martian winter. Then on March of 1997, medyo lumiit yung polar ice caps ng Mars. So that means only one thing, yung shrinking ng polar ice caps that would indicate Martian summer. Alright, so that's how we observe the seasonal changes on the red planet by the shrinking and the growing of the polar ice caps. Alright, now what about the temperature on the red planet? Now, surface temperature on Mars can plummet down to almost negative 81 degrees Fahrenheit. So, napakalamig sa planet Mars. So, you can compare the temperature of Mars with that of Antarctica. So, talagang malamig na malamig sa planet Mars. Now, what about the Martian atmosphere? Now, the Martian atmosphere is really thin. Manipis po ang Martian atmosphere. And in fact, the atmospheric pressure on the planet Mars is only 1% as compared to the Earth's atmospheric pressure. Here on Earth, the atmospheric pressure is about 14 pounds per square inch. So, sa planet Mars, 1% lang yan. Kasi ang Martian atmosphere ay napakanipis. Okay, so that is the Martian atmosphere. And with regards to the composition of the Martian atmosphere is composed of 95% carbon dioxide. So that's how we describe the Martian atmosphere. The Martian atmosphere is really thin and composed mostly of carbon dioxide, which is similar to the Venusian atmosphere. The Venusian atmosphere is composed also of mostly carbon dioxide. But unlike Mars, the Venusian atmosphere is really thick. Okay? Now, the Earth's atmosphere is made up of nitrogen, mostly nitrogen at about 70%, and 21% is oxygen. Alright, so that's how we describe the atmosphere of Mars. The Martian atmosphere is thin and composed mostly of carbon dioxide. Okay? And the Martian atmospheric pressure is only 1% that of the Earth's atmospheric pressure. Alright, so that's the Martian atmosphere. Okay, again, the Martian atmosphere is composed mostly of carbon dioxide at about 95% compared to the Earth's atmosphere, which is composed of nitrogen at about 71%. Okay, then 21% of the Earth's atmosphere is oxygen. Alright, so that's how we describe the Martian atmosphere. Now, in the next slide, we have here a table comparing the composition of the Martian atmosphere with that of the Earth's atmosphere. Now, for the amount of carbon dioxide, the Martian atmosphere has 95.3% carbon dioxide. Compare that with the Earth's atmosphere. The Earth's atmosphere is composed of 0.03% carbon dioxide. Now, for nitrogen, the Martian atmosphere is composed of 2.6% nitrogen. Compare that with the Earth. The nitrogen here on Earth is 78%. Now, for argon, the Martian atmosphere has only 1.6% argon. Compare that here on Earth, the argon content of the Earth's atmosphere is 0.93%. Now, everybody look at oxygen. Now, the Martian atmosphere has only 0.13% oxygen, while here on Earth, the oxygen content of our atmosphere is 21%. So that's how we compare the Martian atmosphere with that of the Earth's atmosphere in terms of its composition. And even though the Martian atmosphere is really thin, there are occasional dust storms on the Martian atmosphere. So the Martian atmosphere, even though it is thin, it is quite violent with dust storms that occur in the Martian atmosphere. Alright, and this was depicted in the movie The Martian. Okay, so there are occasional dust storms on the Martian atmosphere. These dust storms can kick up fine particles in the atmosphere around which clouds can form. These clouds can form very high up to 100 kilometers above the Martian surface. So that's how we describe the Martian atmosphere. Now let's take a look at the Martian terrain. Now, if we will look closely at these photographs of the Martian surface taken by the Viking space probe, you will notice that the Martian terrain resembles that of a desert back here on Earth. So, mukha siyang desierto. And considering the fact that the Martian surface is really cold, malamig po sa Mars. The temperature on the Martian surface can be compared that of Antarctica na napakalamig. So we can describe the Martian surface as a frozen desert. So mukha siyang desyerto at talagang malamig sa Martian surface. Alright, so that is the best description that we can give to the Martian terrain or to the Martian surface. The Martian surface resembles that of a frozen desert. And you will notice the Martian soil is reddish in color. This reddish color is due to iron oxides present in the rocks. So, ibig lang sabihin yan, kalawang yun na sa Martian soil. And that gives it its reddish coloration. Alright? Kaya binigyan ng pangalan yung Mars na red planet because of the reddish coloration of the Martian soil. Yung Martian soil contains rust, iron oxides, or kalawang. Now, here are some photographs of the Martian terrain taken by the Viking space probe. So, here is the Martian terrain. And again, you will notice that the Martian terrain resembles that really of a desert. And since the Martian surface is really cold, the Martian terrain can be described as a frozen desert. And the Martian soil is red, and that is due to the iron oxides present in the Martian soil that gives it its reddish coloration. Alright, so here is Viking with a panoramic view of the Martian terrain. Alright, so isn't that fascinating indeed? And here is the Martian terrain. Compare that to that valley back here on Earth. So that valley really resembles that of the Martian terrain. So isn't that fascinating indeed? Now, what makes Mars more fascinating is that Mars has giant volcanoes, huge valleys like Valles Marineris, we'll talk about that later, and huge impact craters like Hellas Planitia. Now, did you know that on Mars has the largest volcano in the solar system? Now, the largest volcano in the solar system is Olympus Mons. Now, to give you an idea of the immensity of Olympus Mons is 3 times the height of Mount Everest. Olympus Mons is the largest volcano in the solar system. Alright? Now, Olympus Mons is 3 times higher than Mount Everest. Okay, and look at the caldera of Olympus Mons. The caldera is about 45 miles wide. Olympus Mons is 15 miles high. And compare that to Mount Everest. Mount Everest is about 5.5 miles high. So isn't that fascinating about Olympus Mons? Olympus Mons is the largest volcano in the solar system. Mars also has the largest canyon system in the solar system, and that is Valles Marineris. Valles Marineris is the Grand Canyon of the planet Mars. So this is a photo of Valles Marineris. Valles Marineris is a rift system which is the largest canyon system not only on Mars but the largest canyon system in the solar system. And Valles Marineris surpasses all the canyons here on Earth. Alright, so that is Valles Marineris. Valles Marineris extends from the east coast to the west coast of the United States. So ganun po kahaba ang Valles Marineris. Compare that to the United States. And compare that to the Grand Canyon, Valles Marineris is 150 miles wide and 4 miles deep. Compare that to the Grand Canyon here on Earth. The Grand Canyon is only 18 miles wide and a mile deep. So walang sinabi ang Grand Canyon dito sa Earth. Compare that to the immensity of Valles Marineris. Now, here are photos of Valles Marineris taken in orbit around the planet Mars. So, I hope you would realize the immensity of Valles Marineris. Valles Marineris is not only the largest canyon system on Mars, but Valles Marineris is the largest canyon system in the solar system. Now, Mars also has the largest visible impact crater in the solar system, and this is Hellas Planitia. Hellas Planitia is the largest visible impact crater in the solar system. Now, to give you an idea of the immensity of Hellas Planitia, here is the map of the United States and compare that with the size of Hellas Planitia. So I hope you would realize the immensity of this crater, compare that to the United States. So that is Hellas Planitia. And there's also geologic evidence that water once flowed on the Martian surface. Now, at present, there is no liquid water on the Martian surface. Now, because of the thin Martian atmosphere and the low atmospheric pressure, water would simply boil and evaporate. Now, there is geologic evidence for liquid water to have flowed in the past, and they are in the form of canals. So canals were discovered, and these canals probably they were carved by running water. So these canals, they support the idea that water once flowed on the Martian surface. These canals may have been carved by running water. So this is a geologic evidence that water may have once flowed on the Martian surface. So hindi natin maalis ang posibilidad na may tubig sa Mars. That there is water on the planet Mars, and water once flowed on the Martian surface that created these canals. So these canals may have been carved by running water. So ang tanong ngayon ay, nasaan ang tubig? Where is the water on Mars? Now, observations made by Mars rovers and orbiters detected the presence of water ice on Mars, and this water ice is locked in the polar ice caps of Mars. Now, the polar ice caps of Mars contain mostly carbon dioxide ice or dry ice as we call it here on Earth, but may also contain water in solid form. Alright, so water may be locked in the polar ice caps of Mars. And if all that water ice melted, an ocean 11 meters deep would cover the entire planet. Okay, so that's the possibility of water present on the red planet. And finally, Mars is orbited by two moons. So we have Phobos and Deimos. Phobos is the larger moon. And if you will notice, both Phobos and Deimos are potato-shaped moons. And many astronomers believe that Phobos and Deimos may have been captured asteroids from the outer asteroid belt. So that is Phobos and Deimos. Phobos and Deimos may have been captured asteroids from the outer asteroid belt. And here is a photo taken from the Opportunity rover of Deimos eclipse. That's on March 4 of 2004. And here is a photo of Phobos eclipse on March 7 of 2004. Now, baka isipin ninyo na ang mga eclipses na ito ay mo-observe lang dito sa Earth. But based from this photo taken by the Opportunity Mars rover, we can observe eclipses on another world such as the planet Mars. Now, at this point, let us now study the exploration of Mars. Now, it was the Americans who spearheaded the exploration of Mars. So let us now mention some of the Mars landers and rovers that explored the surface of Mars, starting with Viking. Now, the Viking probes of the mid-1970s, they landed on the planet Mars and they conducted biology experiments designed to detect the presence of any microorganisms in the Martian soil. So this is Viking, and Viking is equipped with a robotic arm. This robotic arm can scoop out Martian soil to be analyzed by the biology instrument package on board Viking. Then we have the Mars Pathfinder mission, and what you're seeing now is the Sojourner rover exploring the Martian surface. And by the way, itong Sojourner rover na ito ay kasi laki lang po ng kahon ng sapatos, so maliit lang yan. Then we have the Opportunity rover, and we have here the Curiosity rover. Now, the Curiosity rover was delivered gently on the Martian surface by a special method known as the sky crane method. So, the sky crane method uses a set of cables to lower gently the Curiosity rover, as you could see in this animated illustration. So, ganyan po ang pag-deliver ng Curiosity rover safely and gently sa surface ng Mars through this method known as the sky crane method. So that's the Curiosity Mars rover. And itong rover na ito ay kasi laki po ng maliit na kotse. So what we have here, ito yung tatlong rovers na ito, and you could see the comparative sizes of the rovers. So we have the Sojourner, maliit lang po yung Sojourner, and we have the Opportunity rover, and we have the Curiosity rover na kasi laki po ng maliit na kotse. So after the Curiosity Mars mission, NASA had launched the Mars 2020 Perseverance rover. Now this February 2021 is full of nail-biting moments of truth for three countries. Indeed, the world as three separate Mars missions approach the red planet. So first we have the Hope spacecraft launched by the United Arab Emirates satellites has successfully entered the orbit of Mars. Then we have China's Tianwen-1, and we have the US Mars 2020 Perseverance rover that will arrive at Mars on Feb 18, 2021. The landing site is at the Jezero crater. Ngayon marahil nagtataka kayo kung bakit Jezero Crater ang pinili na landing site for the Perseverance rover. Now, NASA chose the Jezero Crater as the landing site for the Perseverance rover because scientists believed that the area was once flooded with water. Okay, so yun pong paniniwala po ng mga scientists sa NASA that the Jezero Crater is thought to have once been flooded with water. So para siyang crater lake. And also, ang mas malupit po dito ay meron siyang ancient river delta as you could see in this photo, which is an indication that water once flowed on the Jezero crater. The process of landing site selection involved a combination of mission team members from NASA and scientists from around the world who carefully examined more than 60 candidate locations on the planet Mars. Then, after the exhaustive 5-year study of potential landing sites, each with its own unique characteristic and appeal, the Jezero Crater was chosen to be the top landing site for the Perseverance rover. So yun po kasi pag may tubig, ayan po baka merong signs of microscopic life. That's why they chose the Jezero Crater as the landing site for the Mars Perseverance rover. So probably for the information of everybody, let us describe how the Perseverance rover will make a soft landing on the Martian surface. Now first, the spacecraft enters the Martian atmosphere. Now as the spacecraft enters the Martian atmosphere, the drag produced drastically slows it down. But these forces also heats it up dramatically. Peak heating occurs at about 80 seconds after atmospheric entry, when the temperature at the external surface of the heat shield reaches at about 2,370 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is the atmospheric entry of the Perseverance rover. Now, once Perseverance enters the Martian atmosphere, the heat shield slows down the spacecraft to under 1,000 miles per hour. Now, at that point, it's safe to deploy the supersonic parachute of the Perseverance spacecraft. Now, this next stage in the landing of the Perseverance rover makes this so special as compared to the previous Mars missions. Now, right after the deployment of the supersonic parachute, a special camera is activated. This camera quickly identifies features on the Martian surface. The rover compares these to an onboard map in order to determine exactly where it is heading. So, ang ibig lang sabihin nito, alam ng Perseverance spacecraft kung saan maglalanding yung rover. So, isn't that fascinating? Napipinpoint yung eksaktong landing site using this technique of a special camera that identifies the features on the Martian surface and comparing these photos to an onboard map in order to determine where the spacecraft is actually heading. So, isn't that fascinating indeed? Now, once the landing site has been pinpointed, the next thing to do now is for the Perseverance to make a soft touchdown. Now, in order to make a soft touchdown speed, the Perseverance must cut itself free from the parachute and ride the rest of the way down using rockets, a technique known as power descent. This same technique was used by the lunar module as they make a soft landing onto the lunar surface. The same thing with the Perseverance rover. So once the parachutes had been released, then the rockets are activated, making a soft power descent onto the Martian surface. Now, as the Perseverance spacecraft makes its power descent and eventually the spacecraft levels out and slows down to its final descent, it initiates the so-called sky crane maneuver or the sky crane method with about 12 seconds before touchdown at about 66 feet above the Martian surface. The descent stage lowers the rover on a set of cables. So very similar to the Curiosity rover. So this is the so-called the sky crane maneuver that will lower the Perseverance rover gently and safely onto the Martian surface.
NASA's Perseverance rover will reach Mars. This begins the entry, descent, and landing phase of the mission, where it will take the rover from traveling 20,000 kilometers per hour down to safely resting on the surface. This is what NASA calls the 7 minutes of terror. But why do they call it that? From the point in which the Perseverance rover, or Percy for short, enters the Martian atmosphere to the point in which it's safely on the surface of Mars should take roughly 410 seconds, or 7 minutes. So that's why it's called the 7 minutes of terror. But why is it terrifying for NASA? This has to do with the universal speed limit, the speed of light. We communicate with our spacecraft utilizing radio waves, which travel at the speed of light. We can't communicate any faster than that. And at the point when Percy enters the Martian atmosphere, Mars will be 11 light minutes away from us, or 200 million kilometers from Earth. This means that if we were to send a message to Percy right when it enters the atmosphere, it wouldn't get there until it's on the surface. So for the 7-minute period, NASA or the team at JPL can't really do anything about the mission. They just have to sit and wait and listen to see whether or not Percy is successfully on the surface of Mars or if it impacted into a million pieces. This is why it's called the 7 minutes of terror. Nearly a decade's worth of work to get to Mars just to come down to just a few moments where it's completely autonomous. So now let's go over the basics of the entry, descent, and landing sequence, starting with entry. Entry is when the spacecraft enters the Martian atmosphere. And even though Mars's atmosphere is much smaller than that of Earth's, it can still do a great deal at slowing a spacecraft down. As I mentioned, it enters the atmosphere at 20,000 kilometers per hour. And since it's coming in so hot, the spacecraft heats up to roughly 1,300 degrees Celsius, which is very hot. So the heat shield has to be able to protect the rover from these harsh environments when entering the Martian atmosphere. And if you thought that was hard enough, during this entry phase it also has to make course corrections. Just like turbulence in a plane, it can make a major impact on where exactly Perseverance lands. So during its descent, it also has to fire thrusters to make sure that it's going on the right track. The entry phase does an amazing job at slowing the spacecraft down, all the way to 1,500 kilometers per hour, but that's still way too fast to safely land anything on the surface. Therefore, the next stage begins. After 3 minutes from entering the atmosphere, or 11 kilometers above the surface of Mars, the supersonic parachutes are deployed. Now remember how I said that the Martian atmosphere is smaller than Earth's atmosphere? That means you need a massive parachute. The parachute that they used has a diameter of 21 meters, or if you look at this picture, you can see the tiny person in the bottom left. So that just goes to show how massive this thing is, trying to slow the rover down. 20 seconds after the parachute is deployed, the rover no longer needs the heat shield, thus it is dropped. At this point, there are downward-facing cameras that are going to search the terrain to try and figure out where exactly to land on Mars, or where the safest location is in the landing site. Landing a rover with a parachute sounds nice, yet there's a problem. Because the atmosphere is so thin, the vehicle is only able to reach 320 kilometers per hour, which is still incredibly too fast to land anything. So when the spacecraft is 2 kilometers above the surface of Mars, this begins the powered descent stage, where the parachute is released and then the rover itself is under retrorocket propulsion. NASA properly calls this the jetpack for Percy, because it's going to safely navigate it out of the way of the aeroshell and the parachute that are falling at this point, and then are going to continuously looking at images to figure out the best location to land the rover. The descent stage will be able to slow the rover down and bring it to around 20 meters above the surface of Mars. At this point, the sky crane will be activated. You heard that right, a sky crane. Over the course of 10 seconds, the Perseverance rover is lowered down by a 6.4 meter long cable. Then, the descent stage will continue to descend slowly until it detects that the wheels have touched the ground. At this point, it will immediately release the rover, fly off, and eventually crash far away from the landing site. The entire sequence is very similar to what Curiosity did back in 2012.
Now, isn't that fascinating about the landing of the Perseverance rover onto the Martian surface? Now, what is special about the Perseverance rover compared to the Curiosity rover? Now, the Perseverance rover is a car-sized rover at about 10 feet long, excluding the robotic arm. It's 9 feet wide and 7 feet tall. So those are the dimensions of the Perseverance rover. But at 2,260 pounds, the rover weighs less than a small car. And what makes the rover so special? So first, we have the body of the rover. Now, the Perseverance rover's body is called, take note, the Warm Electronics Box or Web. Okay, like a car body, the rover's body is a strong outer layer that protects the rover's computers and electronics, which are basically the equivalent of the rover's brain and heart. So, itong tinatawag na warm electronic box or web, parang skull yan sa ulo natin. So, we know that the skull protects our brain. So, same thing with the Perseverance rover. Yung utak ng Perseverance rover is its computer and sensitive electronic parts. Now, the computer and other sensitive electronic parts must be protected in a way. So, yun yung function ng web or warm electronic box. This is a strong outer layer that protects the rover's computer and electronics. So, parang skull po yan ng ating ulo. So, the Perseverance body or web or warm electronics box protects the onboard computer and other sensitive electronic equipment from the harsh Martian environment. Now, we all know that the Martian environment may be quite harsh, such as exposure to UV rays kasi wala namang ozone sa Mars. So, yung body ng Perseverance and its onboard computer might be exposed to UV rays. So, kailangan protektado yung onboard computer. Plus the fact that Mars has intense dust storms. So, baka may pumasok na dust dun sa onboard computer that might affect the functioning of the rover. And also, not to mention yung temperature sa Mars. Mars is really cold with temperatures plummeting down to minus 80 plus degrees Fahrenheit. So, this warm electronic box or web really protects the rover from those harsh Martian conditions. So the rover's body or the web keeps the rover's vital organs or the onboard computer or other sensitive electronic equipment from the harsh Martian environment. Now, aside from the body of the Perseverance rover, what makes the Perseverance rover unique as compared to the Curiosity rover are its wheels. The wheels of the Perseverance rover are its legs. So parang legs yan ng rover. And engineers have redesigned the Perseverance rover's wheels to be more robust due to the wear and tear. So mas matibay ang mga gulong ng Perseverance rover compared to the wheels of the Curiosity rover. Now the Perseverance wheels are narrower than Curiosity's but bigger in diameter and it is made of thicker aluminum. So ibig sabihin, mas matibay ang mga gulong ng Perseverance rover in order to withstand the harsh Mars conditions para hindi kaagad mapudpod as the rover roams through the Martian surface. So here is a picture of the wheel of the Perseverance rover compared to the wheel of the Curiosity rover. So magkaiba po sila ng threading and mas matibay ang wheel ng Perseverance rover because it is made of thicker aluminum. So mas robust siya at mas matibay siya in order to withstand wear and tear para hindi kaagad siya mapudpod in the harsh environment of the Martian surface. So yan po yung gulong ng Perseverance rover para hindi siya kaagad mapudpod. Mas matibay siya as compared to the Curiosity rover. Now the Perseverance rover has 6 wheels, each with its own individual motor. The 2 front and 2 rear wheels also have individual steering motors. This steering capability allows the vehicle to turn in place at full 360 degrees. So ayan po yung mga gulong ng Perseverance rover. They had their own individual motors and yung steering capability niya. So pwedeng mag-turn siya at full 360 degrees. So ang galing ng Perseverance rover. Now, another thing that makes the Perseverance rover so special as compared to the Curiosity rover is its robotic arm. Now, the 7-foot-long robotic arm on the Perseverance rover can move a lot like a human arm. So, ang galing. It has a shoulder, elbow, and wrist joints for maximum flexibility. So, parang kami ng tao. The arm lets the rover work as a human geologist would by holding and using science tools with its hand or turret. So parang kamay po ng tao ang movement ng robotic arm and that makes it so special as compared to the Curiosity rover. So that's the robotic arm of the Perseverance rover. The rover's own hand tools extract cores from rocks, take microscopic images, and analyze the elemental composition and mineral makeup of Martian rocks and soil. So, are you not fascinated by the robotic arm of the Perseverance rover, diba? So, ang lupit, ang galing ng robotic arm ng Perseverance rover. And a new addition to the Perseverance arm is a rotary percussive drill designed to extract rock samples from the surface of Mars. So, mas malupit itong rotary percussive drill. So, we will look forward to the functioning of this fantastic robotic arm of the Perseverance rover. Now, another feature of the Perseverance rover that makes it unique as compared to the Curiosity rover would be its cameras. The cameras of the Perseverance rover serves as the eyes of the rover. Now, the cameras, they help human operators on Earth drive the rover more precisely and better target the movements of the robotic arm, drill, and other tools that get close to their targets. A much wider field of view of the camera gives the camera a much better view of the rover itself. So that's the cameras of the Perseverance rover. Now, the Perseverance rover carries 6 new hazard detection cameras or HazCams, 4 on the front and 2 on the rear of the rover's body. The HazCams detect hazards to the front and back pathways of the rover, such as large rocks, trenches, or sand dunes. So yung HazCams ng Perseverance rover, this is a much improved version as compared to the Curiosity rover. Now, yung HazCams ng Perseverance, mas wider yung field of view niya. So, 4 na HazCams sa harap ng Perseverance at 2 HazCams sa likod. So, ang ibig lang sabihin nito, with a much wider field of view, pag may nakitang mga bato or trenches or other obstructions dun sa path ng Perseverance rover, madali itong makaiwas. So, yun yung HazCams niya as compared to the Curiosity rover. So, sa mga nakikinig sa atin ngayon, alam niyo pa ba kung ano pa yung mas astig sa HazCams ng Perseverance rover? Now, the Perseverance rover has 2 sets of color stereo navigation cameras or NavCams. And these NavCams, they help engineers navigate the Perseverance rover safely, particularly when it operates autonomously, making its own navigation decisions without consulting controllers on Earth. So, mas astig ito yung mga NavCams ng Perseverance rover. So, ito yung parang mata ng driver to help navigate the Perseverance rover. So, isn't that fascinating indeed? So, sa mga estudyante, sa mga magulang, sa mga guro at mga astronomy enthusiasts na nakikinig po sa atin ngayon, di nyo ba alam na meron pang mas astig sa NavCams ng Perseverance rover? So, itong tinatawag nilang MastCam Z. Now, the MastCam Z is the name of the mast-mounted camera system that is equipped with a zoom function on the Perseverance rover. So, ano nga bang ginagawa nitong MastCam Z? Now, this special camera can zoom in, focus, and take 3D pictures and videos at high speed to allow detailed examination of distant objects. So, this MastCam Z para siyang may telescopic vision. So, this will allow the Perseverance rover to zoom in and take 3D pictures of distant objects. Alright, so yan yung MastCam Z cameras ng Perseverance rover. So, para siyang cameras na may telescopic vision function. So, ang galing talaga ng mga mata, yung mga cameras ng Perseverance rover as compared to the Curiosity rover. Now, another feature of the Perseverance rover that makes it unique as compared to the Curiosity rover is called SHERLOC. So, SHERLOC is the acronym for Scanning Habitable Environments with Raman and Luminescence for Organics and Chemicals. So, yun ang tinatawag na SHERLOC. So, ano nga bang ginagawa ng SHERLOC? Ano ba itong special equipment that is on board the Perseverance rover? Now, the SHERLOC is an ultraviolet Raman advanced spectrometer that uses fine-scale imaging and an ultraviolet laser to determine fine-scale mineralogy and detect organic compounds. So, itong equipment na ito that is on board the Perseverance rover, this will allow the Perseverance rover to detect minerals and even organic compounds. So, yan yung equipment na yan. This equipment will allow the detection of minerals and organic compounds na kailangan yan because one of the main missions of the Perseverance rover is the detection of probably primitive life forms. So, ito yung equipment na maghahanap ng possible life on the red planet. This equipment called Sherlock can detect possible organic compounds and even minerals kasi ang kailangan din natin here on Earth are natural resources. So itong Sherlock na ito will allow the detection of minerals in the Martian environment. So ang astig talaga ng Perseverance rover. And ito ang wala sa Curiosity rover. Hindi niyo ba alam na ang Perseverance rover ay may dalang helicopter? Yes, so the Perseverance rover carries a helicopter on board and it is called the Ingenuity Mars helicopter. Now, the Mars helicopter Ingenuity is a robotic helicopter that is planned to be used to test the technology to scout targets of interest on Mars and also to help plan the best driving route for future Mars rovers. So, ang galing! Ang Perseverance rover ay may dalang helicopter. Ngayon, ang tanong, lilipad kaya yan? Kakagat kaya yung mga rotors sa thin atmosphere ng Mars? Because we know that the Martian atmosphere is so thin. So, ang tinatanong ngayon, lilipad kaya ang Ingenuity helicopter. Now, the Ingenuity helicopter must maintain lift in spite of the thinness of the Martian atmosphere. Now, the Mars thin atmosphere, which is 99% less dense than the Earth's atmosphere, will make it difficult for Ingenuity to achieve enough lift to properly fly. So, baka mahirapan ang Ingenuity helicopter. Now, because of this, it has been designed to be extremely lightweight. So, magaan ang Ingenuity helicopter. It stands just 19 inches tall. The helicopter has 4 large carbon fiber blades fashioned into 2 rotors that span about 4 feet and spin in opposite directions at about 2,400 revolutions per minute, significantly faster than typical helicopters on Earth. So, dinesign nila yan para kumagat yung mga rotors ng Ingenuity sa thin Martian atmosphere.
From day one, this was the unwavering dream of our team, to get our helicopter launched to Mars so that we can get that opportunity to do the very first rotorcraft flight test in the actual environment of Mars. It's extremely difficult to fly at Mars because the atmosphere is so thin. Compared to Earth, at Mars it's less than 1%. So the first and foremost challenge is to make a vehicle that's light enough to be lifted. And then the second is to generate lift. The rotor system has just been very fast. 2,000, 2,200, 2,400, 2,600. We're spinning between 2,000 and 3,000 revolutions per minute, and it takes a lot of energy. So it's that balance of a very light system, yet having enough energy that's needed to, spin the rotor so fast to lift, and on top of it, having to design in the autonomy.
It has to be fully autonomous from the time it takes off to the time it lands. What we do on the ground is we plan the flights, and so we determine from here where we want the helicopter to go.
Our experiment window is 30 Martian days. So we have planned up to 5 flights of incremental difficulty.
very first flight, the main thing is we want to get the legs off the ground, and so we will basically go up about 3 meters, and we'll hover there, and then we'll come down again, and that will be the first, really major milestone.
Most of our flights will be at the 3 to 5 meter height. We will be going horizontally again at a few meters per second, probably go out, 50, 70 meters and come back. In successive flights, we'll probably push that further, try to go further. So our priority will be to get back engineering telemetry and not so much images, but I'm sure we'll return a few, because they'll always look cool.
At this point, we've tested all we can on Earth. We have mathematical models that shows how it'll fly at Mars, and we've tested it in the simulated environment that we can create on Earth. It really is time now to do the real flight tests at Mars.
Nothing is a given, but we have done everything we can in terms of a test program here on Earth. The vehicle's performing extremely well so far. It's been doing exactly the right thing, even right now when it's bolted onto the Perseverance rover. So there's a very good chance that we'll pull it off, yes. But it's still high risk, and none of us forget that you could have a glitch that, could mean end of mission, yes.
It's going to be exciting, reacting to any surprises we have. We can't wait. What's really most important is everything we're learning here is for the future rotorcraft systems that we want to introduce into space exploration.
So if everything will go as planned, etong Ingenuity Mars helicopter will be the first heavier than air vehicle na lilipad sa Martian atmosphere. So aabangan natin ang historic flight ng Ingenuity Mars helicopter. Alright, so another instrument that is so important on board the Perseverance rover is MOXIE. Now, MOXIE is the acronym for Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment, or better known as MOXIE. Now, bakit meron nito sa Perseverance rover? Now, NASA is preparing for a human exploration of Mars. So, probably in a few years from now, we can expect a manned mission to Mars. And MOXIE in the Perseverance rover will demonstrate a way that future astronauts might produce oxygen from, take note, the Martian atmosphere, because we all know that the Martian atmosphere is composed mostly of carbon dioxide. So this equipment, MOXIE, will be able to produce oxygen from carbon dioxide in the Martian atmosphere as life support for the astronauts and for propellant. Okay, so yun yung significance ng MOXIE. MOXIE will produce oxygen from carbon dioxide in the Martian atmosphere. Now, this special equipment on board the Perseverance rover called MOXIE is really significant because this will demonstrate how we can turn atmospheric carbon dioxide on Mars into oxygen. And this oxygen is important for propellant and for life support for future manned mission to Mars. So, MOXIE is a payload being developed for NASA's Perseverance rover mission and will produce oxygen from the Martian atmosphere. Now, the principle involved in turning atmospheric carbon dioxide into oxygen is called solid oxide electrolysis. Now, I am not really sure with the principle behind solid oxide electrolysis or how MOXIE can turn atmospheric carbon dioxide on the Martian atmosphere into oxygen. Pero ito na lang po ang isipin natin. Ang solid oxide electrolysis, we can compare that to the electrolysis of water. Now, we all know in basic chemistry that we can actually separate the component components of water into hydrogen and oxygen. Diba ang water is H2O. So by applying an electric current, we can separate the components of water into hydrogen and oxygen. So following that line of thinking, solid oxide electrolysis follows the same principle. So MOXIE will absorb carbon dioxide from the Martian atmosphere, and probably using those electronics inside MOXIE, the carbon dioxide will separate into carbon and oxygen. That carbon is returned to the Martian environment and oxygen is extracted to be used as propellant and as life support for the Mars astronaut. So that is the principle behind MOXIE. So isn't that fascinating that MOXIE can turn atmospheric carbon dioxide in the Martian atmosphere into oxygen? Now, aside from MOXIE, another important instrument package on board the Perseverance rover is RIMFAX. Now, RIMFAX is the acronym for Radar Imager for Mars Subsurface Experiment. RIMFAX. Now, this equipment uses radar waves to probe the ground under the rover. Now, this equipment, RIMFAX, is located at the lower rear of the Mars Perseverance rover's body. Now, the radar signals returned to RIMFAX look a little like sonograms that show structures under the Martian surface. The radar signals change depending on what materials are present underground, such as ice, rocks, sand, and even liquid water. So to put it simply, ang RIMFAX po ay parang ground penetrating radar. So dito sa Earth, ginagamit na po natin yung teknolohiya na yan, yung ground penetrating radar, para malaman po natin kung ano yung nasa ilalim ng lupa. So RIMFAX will do the same thing. So yung radar waves na ipoproduce ng RIMFAX will penetrate deep into the Martian ground para malaman natin kung ano yung nasa ilalim ng Martian ground. So pwedeng ice and possibly liquid water kasi there's a big possibility na baka may tubig underneath the Martian surface. At yun po ang hinahanap ngayon ng Perseverance rover. The Perseverance rover is designed to locate signs of water beneath the Martian surface using RIMFAX. So aabangan po natin yung results ng RIMFAX experiment na yan. Now, another instrument package on board the Perseverance rover is MEDA. Now, MEDA is the acronym for Mars Environmental Dynamics Analyzer. In short, MEDA. Now, MEDA is like a portable weather station. It makes weather measurements including wind speed and direction, temperature, and humidity. And also, this portable weather station measures the amount and size of dust particles in the Martian atmosphere. Now, remember that here on Earth, our weather system is governed by water. Water is a key element in our weather system. Now, on Mars, there is no liquid water discovered yet. So, the weather system on Mars is governed not by water but by dust particles. So, MEDA will make measurements of the amount and size of dust particles in the Martian atmosphere. So, in a way, they can forecast the weather system on the planet Mars. So, isn't that fascinating indeed? So, those are some of the unique features of the Perseverance rover as compared to the Curiosity rover. So before we end, let's watch this fascinating video about the Perseverance rover. Alright, so let's watch this.
Mars is the closest place that we can reach with robotic exploration that we think had a really good chance of having ancient life.
The Perseverance rover will land at a location called Jezero Crater. Jezero Crater is a very interesting place. It's a crater that once held a lake.
There are a lot of craters on the surface of Mars that could have once hosted ancient lakes, but not every crater that we think had a lake actually preserves evidence that that lake was there.
It had an inflow channel and it had an outflow channel. That means it was filled, the crater was filled with water.
In Jezero, we have probably one of the most beautifully preserved delta deposits on Mars in that crater.
This is a wonderful place to live for microorganisms, and it is also a wonderful place for those microorganisms to be preserved so that we can find them now so many billions of years later.
There is no other place on Mars that has the unique combination of a lake setting, a beautifully preserved delta, and the diverse mineralogy that we have in Jezero Crater. So it's truly a special landing site.
The major goal of the Perseverance mission is to investigate astrobiology on Mars, and in particular, to address the question of whether life ever existed on Mars. The Perseverance rover starts with a design that's very similar to Curiosity, but we've added to it a whole new set of science instruments. And these science instruments were purposefully selected to help us in the search for biosignatures.
We're going to be taking microphones with us. For the first time, we're going to have that human sense on another planet.
Perseverance carries with her a grand experiment in spacefaring technology, a helicopter, the name of which is now Ingenuity.
One of the major upgrades that Perseverance has from Curiosity is that it's able to self-drive for a distance of up to 200 meters per day. As the rover is driving, it's literally building the map of the road it's driving on Mars.
Scientists for years have told us that to really unlock the secrets of Mars, we have to bring samples from Mars back to Earth.
So what Mars 2020 is going to do is to drill samples, put them in small tubes. We're going to seal it in its own individual tube. We set them on the surface to provide a target for the second two missions, which hopefully will get in development in the next several years and could potentially get the samples back to Earth by 2031.
Perseverance is a very, very profound first step in both our understanding of our place in the universe and a stepping stone towards human exploration on Mars.
Now, isn't that fascinating about the Perseverance rover? Now, before I conclude my talk for today, I would like to enumerate the importance of the Perseverance rover mission. Bakit ba importante to sa ating lahat? Now, the Perseverance rover mission is important to mankind because the knowledge and the capabilities that we will gain from this mission will help us prepare for future human missions on Mars as early as 2030. And the technology that is on board the Perseverance rover will help us drive into that exploration. So, importante po itong Perseverance rover mission to Mars. Now, also, this mission is important because Perseverance will look for signs of life on the red planet. Okay? And lastly, this mission is important because this will be our first attempt for controlled flight dun sa Ingenuity helicopter. Okay? So, that's the importance of this mission to humanity. Alright, so if there are any questions or comments or even reactions about this talk, please feel free to type in your reactions or your comments or questions in the comment section or in the chat box. Huwag po kayong mahiya, and I would be glad to answer all your questions, or you can turn on your cameras and your audio and magtanong po kayo during our live open forum after this. Well, I guess that's about it for our special episode entitled Mars Decoded here on Space, the Final Frontier. Sana marami po kayong natutunan about Mars and yung latest na pinadala ng NASA ng pangalan ay Perseverance rover. Sana po ay nag-enjoy kayo at sana po marami kayong natutunan dito sa ating special episode. Pa-shoutout po sa mga students ko from 11 STEM. Sana nakikinig po kayo. And also pa-shoutout din sa mga members and officers of the Bedan Society of Young Astronomers. So sana nakatutok din po kayo and pa-shoutout din po sa mga suki namin dyan, yung mga laging sumusubaybay sa ating programang Space, the Final Frontier. Sana wag po kayo magsawa at lagi sana kayong tumutok sa aming programa instead na manood kayo ng mga teleserye, dito na lang po kayo tumutok at marami pa ho kayong matututunan. Okay, so sana you like and share this video para makarating po sa mga estudyante natin sa Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. So I guess that's about it. So maraming salamat. Thank you for watching. This is your professor, Professor Jun Cahigal, saying live long and prosper. And I will see you guys in our next episode of Space, the Final Frontier. Always stay safe. Lagi po kayo mag-iingat. And goodbye everybody. See you in our next episode.
There she is. NASA's Voyager 1. Launched in 1977.
But that's just very small potatoes compared to what the Earth is involved with and knows about.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
To go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone.